Last week, an AI autonomous programmer was announced by Cognition. It's called Devin. And in the week since, a bunch of open source repositories are trying to replicate that functionality. In this video, I'm going to show you OpenDevin and how to install it, the backend, the front end, and the Docker container. And then we'll talk about 3 different examples and the actual cost of using this product. Let's get straight into installing OpenDevin. And the way you can do that is navigate over to GitHub OpenDevin, find the repository for OpenDevin, and then just click on the code button. From there, you'll have 3 different ways that you can clone it down onto your computer. I use the GitHub CLI tool, gh repo clone OpenDevin/OpenDevin. From there, I went into Visual Studio just to have a look at what we've got. To run this locally, you're going to need a couple of runtime environments, and on my computer I use ASDF to manage programming language versions. I've currently got Node and Python installed on my computer with different versions, and I've also got Docker, and if you run a Docker PS you'll see a list of containers that you've got on your computer. Now the one we actually need for OpenDevin is called ghcr.io/OpenDevin sandbox. Make sure you do a Docker pull on that and pull it down to your computer. Looking at the list of files in your code editor, what you'll want to do is copy the config.toml template to config.toml, and notice here that it's light grey. It's also listed in my git ignore because we're going to put secret information in here like API keys, and we don't want that to be pushed up to a repo. We can now configure a large language model to use with OpenDevin, and I've decided I want to use OpenAI, so I've headed over to platform.openai.com and gone down to the API keys, created a new one and just made a copy of it. From there, what I can do is go over to the config.toml and just paste the value in there. You can also export it to your environment. With 3 installation steps, the first being the back end, what you need is a Python environment, and from there we can do a pip install pipenv. Follow that up with a pipenv install -v and a pip shell, and what that will do is use the pip file that's already in the project to make sure that the environment matches what works with OpenDevin. With your environment in place, you can now use UVcorn to open the back end on port 3000. So long as you've gotten through any troubleshooting sort of issues, if you come back later on and you try to run this and you have errors, just remember that you do need to activate the shell each time before starting the server. Let's now look at the front-end chatbot, which we will be running on port 3001 in this case. And if you go over to your project, there will be a folder called Frontend. You can just cd into that project and run an npm install. With these installations, we can now start the application, and what you'll see here are a couple of terminals where on the left I've got the Python backend running, and on the right I've got the Node.js frontend running, and you can see that it's running on port 3001. Now, before you write any prompts to create some code, we do need to configure and make sure everything is working with the Docker container. What you can do is start the application as normal, run a Docker PS, and you will see no containers listed. But the moment you start running an actual prompt to generate code, it will reach out, and from there you should be able to do a Docker PS. You'll see the OpenDevin sandbox running. Let's look at the example application that I wanted to create with OpenDevin. Now, recently I've been playing around with YouTube automation agents, what I would call an army of workers, and I've been doing that using Crew AI. And what I was looking for was, if the agents are running in the background, how can I communicate with them from the front end, and what technology would I pick? And I thought, let's try and create an AstroJS application using OpenDevin. Heading over to the OpenDevin workspace, we can select a large language model to work with. I'm using OpenAI, so I'll go with GPT-4. And from there, we just need to write a prompt. Now, the prompt I had was install a new AstroJS project named Fly Video, use Tailwind CSS, and create a simple homepage for a SaaS application for YouTube automation. So it started running npm create astro at latest with the parameters that make sense for the project that I'm creating, and then starting to install Node.js dependencies. One of the things it did do was use the workspace variable to create a new workspace folder within the project that is OpenDevin. After that, it started running, and I noticed it was running for a little while and didn't seem to be working. I wasn't sure what was going on. Didn't actually investigate the issue too deeply that it couldn't install AstroJS. And what I did was make a bit of a clumsy mistake of thinking that this was all running locally on my computer, because I've been using Crew AI, where a lot of the Python work is local and part of your local environment. So I gave it this prompt saying, I'm using ASDF, I'm using Node 20, can you do an installation doing that? And it tried to do that and it failed, because what was going on was this is all running in a Docker container, and the Docker container hasn't got ASDF installed. It should have worked, but I couldn't figure out what was going on initially. What this led to was a thought of, is this costing me any money at the moment? And what I found out was that 5 minutes of playing around with this had cost me $4.23 in OpenAI credits, and I hadn't achieved anything at this point. So I made a decision just to abandon this and go to a simpler solution, just using HTML pages. Moving on to example number 2, which was just to set up a simple HTML page around this YouTube automation army. What I did was developed a fairly complex prompt where I was talking about this agent framework where transcripts from YouTube videos could be processed by different agents. I needed a couple of fields: the title of the video, the transcript, a list of agents that I would like to work with, and a simple start button. When the start button runs, the agents would run and there'd be events coming back, and hopefully a bunch of results from the agents. With that all in place, I just pasted it straight into OpenDevin, and let's see what happens. OpenDevin started running the new task, and it runs an ls command on the workspace folder, and it figures out that there's no files there, and you can see that it's empty here. From here, it then moves on to a planner and starts writing some code for you. Now, OpenDevin is going to show you the code in a terminal here, and also tell you what it did. It says current version of Flow Video page has a transcript, a title. It's also got a agent selection list and a start button. After that, it started going into a couple of errors. I wondered what this was doing, and this just kept going on. If you go and look at the terminal, you can see that there's big prompts being sent, and this is step 12 at the moment. And that got me thinking, is this costing me money? I went over to the costing and saw that 92 cents had been consumed at this point. What did we get for it? We got this HTML page. You can see the form here, and it tells us the information that it's got going on. Now, normally, with a page being created like this, what you would want to do is go down to the bottom and type in a new prompt. But I just stopped the server at that stage because something wasn't working, and we were in a repeating loop that could be quite expensive. The last example is a continuation. It's updating the page, but what makes it a little bit different is that in the past, we had a workspace with no files, so it knows how to create new applications. In this case, there are files, so it can assume that it's just taking the work that's there and updating it further. Take the prompt that we had before. I just made a couple of modifications to the text. I said I've already created the HTML page, and I told it what sections it had gotten right. I just added in down below where I'd already had this information, told it this is the next section that I want you to add into the system. Now what it's done is said, OpenDevin is starting the new task of reading in the index.html in the workspace, and it's figured out that it needs to create an event log and a GPT output sections. What it does is try to work with a file in a subdirectory called workspace, and that was a bit of an error, but it self-corrected. We're now editing the workspace index.html. We've got a bunch of HTML. The first section being the event log is a table. The second section, GPT output, is a couple of rows just showing some JSON. We look at the old form, and the new form is now added, the event log and the GPT output. If we look at the costing for this, we can see that cost 36 cents, and it was quite successful. Or evaluating whether this is a good product to use, we need to look at the costs. So how much did this cost? And for me, the first project, which was a bit of a failure, the AstroJS, cost me $4.23, and I never got an output that satisfied me. The second one was a success, but then it went into a little bit of an infinite loop, and I stopped it at 92 cents. The third one worked. There was one error during the process, but it self-recovered, and that cost me 36 cents. So all up, this was a $5.50 using OpenAI GPT-4 credits. OpenDevin is very promising, but it needs to be guided at the moment, otherwise you could incur some big costs. I look forward to seeing what they're going to do with this over the next few weeks. It could be a worthy contender and alternative to Devin AI. I'm AppyDave. If you like videos on ChatGPT, coding with GPT or prompt engineering, then like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.